Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, alongside me tonight, also from the Central Florida area, here in Collinsport, Maine. I have Professor Pixel, who's changed his name and picture yet again. And of course, that means we're covering Dark Shadows Season 1, Episode 7 of the revival, the 1991 reboot of the TV show that Pixel, you and I have been talking about for the past 6 weeks now. We're halfway through. Unfortunately, this show would be canceled and not returned to. And one of the big issues I have, generally speaking, with films is, lazy writing when it comes to like time travel and stuff. I thought it was handled very well in Back to the Future as much as it can be. Obviously, that's something that we're going to have to discuss in this episode too. However, that being said, it doesn't really bother me. And this is a fun episode. We've got more Willy beatings, creative ways to beat him up. He's a one-eyed pirate now looking kind of guy. We got sexy women with their boobies hanging out everywhere in that old. We've got evil demonic labels, which I should add in the description too, because that leads to some satanic stuff. And we have, and I'm not going to say what's really happening because of the algo, but we've got some really nasty boiling oil courtesy of Mr. Invader himself, the other Collins guy who I love, Mr. Invader, a Quinn Martin production, unlike not being a Dan Curtis one. But this is a great episode. And you know what? I forgot Adrian Paul was in here, and I'm going to say a lot about him because he crushes Barnabas, in my opinion, in this show, and I wish there was more of them. But let me hand this over to you for your initial impressions. Obviously, I liked it, and I'd like you to tell me what you think and take the lead.
That's right. Well, we always have to start with, my name is Victoria Winters.
That's right.
I have been looking forward to this episode all week. I have been so eager to see what they would do because it's such a momentous time for the series. And so for them to go ahead and bring us back into the fold to reveal the past, it's going to be quite a doozy. But I enjoyed this episode a lot. I'm going to go ahead and say that. When we started out, this episode starts out with Barnabas as he's basically asked, hey, you knew the lady that just dropped here from the year 1790, right? Phyllis Wick. And yes, he did. And according to him, she didn't last very long. And from his memory, if Victoria's in her place, what is happening to her? And we get to see that. We get to see her walk up to Collinwood, or not Collinwood, the old house.
Yes.
Or as it's called back then, the manor.
Yes.
With two children playing outside. It's Sarah and David. No, not David. It's Daniel. And quickly things are becoming more apparent that we're no longer in Kansas. Well, we're still in Kansas, but a different time for Kansas.
Yes, and God, she's so stunning, so beautiful. And like I said, when you have a show like this where people can dress up and play these different roles, it just leads to campy goodness here too. And when he comes out to meet him, and the writing is very smart and simple and effective. And I don't want to say it's smart like, it's something we haven't seen before, but you don't see much of it today. It's simple. He comes out and she's like, Barnabas, and he's like, no, but you look like somebody I was expecting. And of course, later on, that comes back because when he confronts her later, he's like, you knew my name. And it's just, she has obviously a tough time realizing that she's somehow gone back to the 1790s. And the one thing I wanted to point out too that I thought was interesting is she's wearing all black. Don't know if that's significant or anything like that, but I think he looks better in the old world gear here too. This hair pulled back, colonial style. This is looking good.
The little ponytail in the back.
And then Elizabeth Collins, I know she's older, but from the neck down, she's really bearing her assets quite well. I'm really shocked. And
yes. They've got quite a lift, to them. The old world corsets, and corsets are the star here in this episode.
Because, for, I don't know how long it's been, maybe a good 20, 25 years, it's all about the side boob now when you have stuff instead of the upper boob, and I think the upper boob is definitely the superior of the two. I'm just saying. So, but that's not important right now. What's important is
Yes. Quickly, she gets to go ahead and meet. She does have her little Dorothy moment. Oh, and you were there, and you were there because Elizabeth is not Elizabeth. No, instead, she is playing. Oh, I feel so bad. How can I forget the name of Barnabas's mother? Oh my gosh. That is heartbreaking. But you also have Mrs. Johnson there, and as in the old show with this show, she's playing a certain character named Abigail, and with Abigail, you hate her, so much. Uh, but the twist that really threw me for a loop was the casting of Barnabas's father, Joshua,
Why?
because in the original series, Roger always plays that role. He plays the fatherly role of the time. Oh, I'm the male head of the family. Uh, that's not the case here. I am sure that we've seen this man before in the show. I can't remember who it is though.
Maybe. I haven't really looked at it too much because now what it is since they've gone back in time and they're giving us a big dose of it, we go, okay, yeah, it's still Victorian. Barnabas is Barnabas, but you go, okay, we still call him Willy, but you have people that you're like, what names do I call him? Because now you have to refer to him as the other names, and because we're 6 episodes in with them as one name, trying to have another one on some of these can be a little bit daunting. They handle it well, but it's just one of those things that you have to deal with when you deal with time travel in this case.
Yes. Um, I also was looking forward to seeing how it would play out with them explaining Barnabas is always he's a good soul inside. He sees this poor girl and says she needs my help. And quickly goes to her defense. Oh, well, she's here obviously for the children. That's she is the tutor. Uh, and she is still tripping at this time to the point where they put her in her room and oh, we have some suitable clothes, and I nearly forgot the best part. We have Dr. Hoffman as Natalie Dupre, uh, and Aunt Natalie, as she'll basically be referred to as. She is quite different from Julia. Quite different.
Yeah, I the overly thick German French accent, really got me here too. But I thought, when you get to play around like that, have some
You
fun
gotta
with it.
have
And
fun. You
it's
gotta have
apparent
fun.
that with all the relationships that we've seen now we kind of get to see the genesis of them, and I like it too. And one of the slight issues that I'm not going to say maybe developing, but we've touched on before is Barnabas is kind of simping around for Victoria, and now we're going to understand a bit more why. So I don't know if that'll make us feel sympathetic. Um, we still don't know
Sympathetic.
a lot about Victoria and really her backstory because, as we'll talk about towards the end of the episode, we get some revelations about some things and it becomes a bit more clear. But what's cool about here is we go through the Stranger in a Strange Land sort of thing, the Rip Van Winkle female version of it, where she's walking around. Of course, she puts on the dress we've seen before, and again, it just shows the power of just having a few really good set pieces you become familiar with. You can do all sorts of things with it. It doesn't have to be super expensive looking or busy. You can have people just cross in the background and make it look like they're doing stuff like actually building the place, which is the whole idea to make us go, oh, yeah, this is when they were first constructing it. But we get an upgrade for Hunky Man Meat because he's dressed colonial style and his eyes are super big like a baby. And he's talking to her and comforting this distressed woman in here, saying, well, you must have fell and I shall write a letter. So you must have a strong introduction. So that way they can't. And we're already getting the seeds of what's supposed to be happening in the situation. And it's that for whatever reason, they want to do right by her. So the idea here is that he's going to write a letter. So their Father Collins, who we haven't seen or dealt with, is going to buy into this. It's going to have some credence. Her curriculum vitae for you nerds out there, her resume for the normal people, and it's super duper important because of the roles men and women had back then about the way you would get introduced and get married and titles and all that. And that is definitely a thing here, which explains some of their intricacies, shall we say. And I think it's kind of hard to like or hate her as she's going through this, it's like get over it, bitch. You know what's going on. You knew he's a vampire, so why are you freaking out that you went back in time? You know what I'm saying? I mean, the vampire thing's ludicrous. Back in time's even more. But if you can accept one, you can probably accept the other. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
yeah, but she didn't know he was a vampire. She doesn't know that yet.
Yeah, but she's seen things and been around people that have seen and talked about things. And you're right. In the current time version here, there are the characters that have seen various things, but she knows damn full and well, like, um, with, just like I say, some things she's experienced, the things are not on the up and up, and it surprises me that she's whatever, but, okay, that's fine. So I
It
felt
it,
like we had to kinda just get through this there, but I
it
liked
ta-
how they introduced her clothing as making her potentially, doing the work of Satan because
a
it has strange
witch.
symbols on it, and they took a little thing like that no matter how absurd this might be, it's a very major plot theme here because what it does is it says, hey, we got some crazy religious kook out there that might want to come around and may have some judicial power to do some nasty things or whatever like that, even if I don't like the guy. But we're a God fearing Christian household. And, we've already heard about Martinique, I think, before. So we know there's going to be voodoo in here as well. That's probably the cause of a lot of things, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But
That's right.
it's really great how they set all this up. They're not rushing. They're reintroducing all the characters that we've come to know, and it just looks fun so far at this point here.
That's right. Can't forget about the evil of machine wash, cold iron, tumble dry. Uh, um, yes, we Victoria does get a change of clothing, and then she overhears them outside, and they pretty much think she's gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, or the Victorian, the colonial equivalent,
Well,
and
go ahead.
and they instantly start talking about, okay, we need to go ahead and bring in the, I can't remember what the official title they go ahead and say it is, but basically bring in the doctor to send her away. And so she runs away into the
The
main house,
bailiff.
Collinwood. And
Yeah, we'll
that's where
talk
she
about the
meets
bailiff.
Hunky Man Mink, as you like to call him, as Peter Bradford.
Yes.
That is quite a twist, and I hope that
Many an adult male like him has had the name Peter in the adult film industry. Just saying.
I just hope they did not get rid of the character that Joe's supposed to play. That's all I have to say. There is a specific character that the actor for Joe in the original played, and it's quite a role. And if they cut that, it'll be quite sad.
Let me ask you this though, because we're about halfway through this episode and things are like setting up. It's not as intense of an episode as I would think some of the others, and that's not a
Hmm,
bad thing. The whole um, Satanistic clothing situation that we've got going on here, like I said, I thought it was kind of neat because it's a plot device to introduce the bailiff, which we'll talk about, and some other things here and how things are supposed to go, and it gives us a sense of automatically she's got immediate concern besides the bigger meta one to deal with, which is not a bad thing to do. It keeps us occupied while things can get the roots settled and we can get fleshed out a bit more. But for her, there was a time when zippers were considered lower class, and then it kind of in a roundabout way mentioned. I didn't hear clothes that affix themselves, not by the hand, and then they say it in that 1790s kind of speech a little bit, and I thought that's kind of subtle and neat because you look at what they're wearing, you can say it's period piece and it's dated. Those are beautiful hand sewn
yes,
dresses, and hand craftsmanship is still the best when it comes to suits and dress attire and everything too. Not a friggin' machine, and so zippers are considered, like I say, for the working class or the lower class, not for the upper class in a sense. And we go on and on about the fashion of the show, but it brings up a really interesting transition here because we do get to see Angelique kind of play
Angelique.
girlfriend with her about sharing clothes and this and that too. And they have a nice little exchange. She's like, "You're in the next room, aren't you?" And Angelique's, "Yes, but if you need anything, come see me. But oh, not tonight because you know." And she just kind of like puts her hand over her heart or her bosom, I think is a
Yeah,
appropriate word to say here.
not
And she just,
tonight.
oh, oh, oh. So it's the adult way of letting us know there's going to be some hanky panky. And it felt like Angelique here was being very sincere. And I was going to
Yes,
ask you what you thought of
yes.
this interaction.
That's exactly how she is. She goes ahead. Oh yes, I hope we'll be great friends. Oh, but leave me alone tonight. And when she goes away, we get to see a different side of her. Quite a few sides of her.
Yeah.
When she slips into the chamber of Barnabas Collins. Yes,
Oh, that
Angelique.
opening line, I'm tired of waiting for an invitation.
I'm tired of it.
Boing.
Yep,
She's
yep.
got those crazy eyes going too. She's gonna take him down.
The eyes are the most important part. The original actress had eyes that would just stare into your soul, and this one, yeah, I mean, if you're going to recast, this is the kind of woman you need to recast with,
And
because
her hair's
she,
so wide it looks like they just had sex.
uh,
And so he does what
yeah,
any healthy 25-ish prince man or whatever you want to call him roll in here would do. He lets her know that, hey, it was a one-time thing. If I knew my girlfriend was coming back, my fiance, this would have never happened. Forget about it. She's coming. We're going to get married. So they're rehashing the plot a couple times just to
yes,
let everybody
yes.
know too.
But
He's
then she
basically
drops
saying you're
her
crazy,
dress.
but he does, like I say, what any strong principled man would do at the time. He bones the ever-loving shit out of her completely
Yeah,
because you just can't. You can only say no so many times.
yeah. Angelique is definitely enchanting.
But did you think she put a love spell on him or not at this point?
Um, no,
I don't know
no,
either. This
no.
looked like human to human.
So I'm doing. I'm
Twitter beeps. Hey,
I'm
she's a
trying to
witch, bro.
balance things
Oh,
here, okay? I'm going to go ahead and say no. That's because I know no, but no, it's very human. It is. It was a passion, and then she
I
was
could take you
obsessed with
places Joe
him.
said never could.
That's
I'm
right.
like, uh-oh.
Places that Josette never could. Yes. And
That's
then
hot.
after we get to cut away from that night, we get to see as I love this. I love this. We have Jeremiah. He is the kind of flirtatious. Yeah, I can't remember if it's younger or older brother. I think it's younger brother of Barnabas. And they are waiting outside, and they are just basically teasing each other because Millicent Collins is coming. Yes, that's their cousin. Listen, it was a different time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the idea of a distant cousin coming along, and oh, you're arranged to be married. She's quite wealthy. You're going to take it, Jeremiah, as Joshua Collins would say. Millicent in the other show is very particular, like this one. However, she's so scared. She's so terrified all the time. But this one is not scared. She is just kind of bratty. Remember that I like red roses instead of the tulips that Barnabas picked up. And then you get to see as she mouths off about Ben Loomis, which is definitely a change. But, it's going ahead and saying that, hey, this is the Willy of this time. And that's fine. That's fine. I don't know how I feel about Stokes being omitted, but it is what it is.
She's not
But it's
ugly because
it's such a
she's
good scene though
It,
because it's
this is
light.
the most
It's
popular
fun.
scene for the revival. One of them, if you go on YouTube or Daily Motion or any of them there too, because of everything that's going on here. They talk about the class structure, like I said before, about the arrangement. If your dad says you'll get married, you will, and of course Jeremiah. I totally forgot that Adrian Paul, Mr. Highlander TV version, was on here, and he was a dancer choreographer that did a couple bit things and stuff. I think he was in Queensryche's video, not mine, but off the Mind Crime album, the Eyes of a Stranger, phenomenal song, phenomenal band, one of the more popular ones of the late 80s, by far the best singers from that Seattle sound, from like Ann and Nancy Wilson, same singer and all that, Joff Tate. And without digressing too much, I gotta say, Adrian Paul, this is the key thing I want to say. Barnabas, we're used to him being like, walking around with those stiff broom up his ass. He's the Fred Astaire of vampires in here. The Gene Kelly to me would be Adrian Paul, because Adrian, he floats. He's got this dancer's kind of gracefulness about him as he just moves and enters and holds things very balanced. And when you watch this, I went, "Holy shit! I forgot about him," because the TV show was excellent for that type of thing, and it was one of the first major shows that had a spinoff from the movie that lasted several years on USA. And Adrian Paul is perfectly charming in here in a totally different way that really, we kind of get used to Barnabas being the center of the group, but now we go, wow, these guys are all equally strong in their own way, except maybe Hunky Man Me, but even he's, leveled up here. You know what I'm saying? And don't forget to talk about One-Eyed Pirate Willy here.
Yes, but I have to wait. I have to wait because his most important scene is just a little bit away. Just a little
Yes.
bit. We have to talk about Abigail. Like I said, nobody likes Abigail.
Everybody's
You
a
cannot
fucking
like
snoot.
Abigail.
Yeah.
She goes ahead through Victoria's things, even stumbles upon the book of the Collins family history, which Victoria traveled back with, but she doesn't pay any attention to it. She just moves it aside because she wants the dress. And she takes it down to a certain little area where this poor young girl is being tortured to get Satan out of her.
Yeah, that we're gonna just leave it at that because of
Yes.
what's really happening. This is a brutal scene, believe it or not, to me.
Yes. So I'm very Reverend Trask is absolutely a just evil, vicious figure, just like this. I just don't know about who is in the role. I know who it is, but having him as Reverend Trask is just a little bit different than I expected.
He looks almost orcish or something. It's
Yeah.
really cheap makeup, but it's terrifying to look at his face. They just do this eyebrow thingy and they yellow his teeth up. And God dang it, it looks great. I'm going. In 5 seconds seeing this guy talk, the way he kind of rolls his eyes a little bit as he's doing stuff. He's not orgasmic or whatever. The dude's friggin' intense, and I thought he was like that in the current time of Dark Shadows, but here, holy shit! Again, another level up. This guy's the man. He's evil. Right now. He's more scary than
Yes.
Barnabas to me.
I know he's definitely somebody you don't want messing around in your area. But sadly, Abigail has gone ahead and convinced him that what should we do, Reverend? You are a holy man. You will know. And basically, he's saying, be watchful. If you have a woman like this, you need to keep her eye because none of you are safe. That's when Abigail basically has a family meeting and tells everybody, this girl, we have no idea about her, blah, blah, blah. And Phyllis Wick, I heard from Reverend Trask's handmaid that she just disappeared. And now this girl has appeared? What is this? This isn't right. And we obviously have Barnabas coming to Vicky's defense. But once she comes in and speaks with Joshua about, oh, well, yes, I did come on the coach, the male coach, as Barnabas is able to help put that in there. And, I don't really remember because I bumped my head. You go ahead and hear him say to Abigail, that's enough. Where did you hear this about Phyllis Wick? And that's when we learn that Joshua is not a fan of Reverend Trask. And that's a little bit different than last time. But here, he basically says, Abigail, you're going to leave her alone, or you will be exorcised from this house. And that's the last we see of the past for a minute. For 1 minute. 1 sweet minute.
I like this because, again, it takes all these little bits and pieces of this episode of what's going on in the current local, political, social climate that's going on right there at like you said, the old manor rather than, the actual estate and everything, not even the town so much. And we just know what the setup is without having to see it. only because they mentioned a few times by the way of introducing characters. So it's a way to accomplish a couple things. So I think it's pretty tight writing there. Obviously, this is when Barnabas confronts her, and they have like, it's not a come to Jesus meeting so much as it's hey, is there anything that you really want to tell me? You know, and it's good. The only slight negative I think in this episode here is when they do a brief cut to the current time after this, and we see
Elizabeth get a nap.
yeah, there you go, Elizabeth. You're quite fetching in your outfit there, and then here you're in real time. You're taking a nap while what's her face awakes from her stupor, freaks out, and leaves. I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's convenient. I mean, you know,
Yep.
whatever.
And Julia's like, "Where did you go? Come on, Elizabeth."
Julia
But-
likes to make people tea. I got to give her a +1 for that because we see her carrying that up, and who cares if it's a medicinal medium that she's trying to do it, but it's just an excuse to go out. I say tea because she's carrying it with two hands, and we've seen the lemons cut up with tea in here. We've seen the cucumber sandwich scene earlier, so I got to give her credit for that. She's still rocking everything here, and her outfits get even more extreme, literally, in the throwback scenes here too. But yeah, that takes us to really the final scene here, which I'm vibing out that you're quite fond of. So I'm going to let you handle this, and then I'll add my 2 cents in.
So Angelique decides, well, it worked the night before. It's time to do it again. And just slips into Barnabas's chambers, surprises him when he's coming to retire for the evening. And he says, "What are you doing here?" again. And it rehashes that, except this time he's adamant. No, this will never happen again. I am in love with Josette. That is all that I long for. This can never happen again. And Angelique goes ahead and gives a warning that it will never end and slips away. And goes ahead the next morning to go see Ben Loomis. "Hey, Ben, what are you up to? Do you want to see this?" And has this ridiculous doll.
She's like,
ridiculous.
He's like, "What do you want?" She's like, "I want you." And you see him kind of like, "Yeah, I'd like to tap that," but he knows it's not
of
gonna
course.
happen.
Of course. And you know, it's not as ridiculous as it was last time, but that's another side note. But here, yeah, no, she shows the doll and she says, "It's you, and you work for me now." And Ben is like, sure, go back in the house where you belong. And that's when she punches the doll in the gut and he hurls over. She tosses him to the floor, steps on him, and she becomes so vicious. It is beautiful. It is in if you thought her being seductive was a hot, well, her being cruel is something different.
She's going for it.
Yes, and it's brilliant. Basically, she has been under her spell and makes him forget in between until she calls again. And there's one final scene. The end is with Victoria, and she's starting a diary and saying, "My name is Victoria Winters." That threw me off at the end. And she says she's writing the diary in case anything happens. There will be some record to these events that she has been thrown back into the past. But she pauses. Somebody's arrived. She quickly hurries out and stands at the above the stairwell and watches as two figures come in. One is the father.
Scotch drinking god, who's just the whatever. I don't know. I didn't catch his name.
Yes, I'm trying to remember. Josette's dad should be right there, but I can't remember. But with Josette, and she stares, and she kind of is in shock as they look at each other, and Victoria says, "It's me." But who's standing behind her? Angelique. And that is the end of our episode.
It's so cheesy.
It's brilliant. It's
I'd rather
art.
have the camera go back and forth like this though, than to do that where you see somebody's like elbow to shoulder shot at the side looking at somebody, and it's so obvious, like, some cheesy 80 action flick like Jean-Claude Van Damme one, where he's got the twin and you could tell they're, not even looking at each other, and how they would splice things, because again, effects are very practical in the show, very little special in that. So here it's all about the cinematography and saying, well, let me show the two people talking on the left and right side, and then we'll do the quick zoom to the person in the back. Not a crash, but just so you can see, that devious looking bitch who stole the dress staring at everybody. She's up to no good. I liked I liked this scene a lot with Willy, because I got to give a lot of props to this guy acting, because she's like twisting the arm, putting it behind his back, doing all sorts of stuff, making him bend over, and he's having to do it, and she's having to do it too. And I would be laughing my ass off if I was in a situation like that. But the one thing I have to say about Angelique here is which is I don't know. I felt that her being genuine with Victoria was legit, and I feel like she hasn't done the love spell thing. Obviously, they had she felt she was next in line, but he's going back with whatever. That echoes real life with what happens all the time. So it's just one of those things too. Um, that's why I thought it was interesting with her being friendly. It seems on the surface, at least right now, it's that way. And of course, she was able to seduce him. So he's like most men. You press him hard enough, they're going to be weak. And I don't feel like he was like, ha ha ha, I'll bone her and get away with it. I do say Barbas, I felt was normal, was like human. And that aristocratic air that he seemed to have in the first few episodes, here right now, it's gone. But he's still an intense guy. I still like it. I think he's the oldest just because of the way he portrays himself. The other guys are younger. And Hunky Mammy, you can't take seriously at this point anyway. But I feel like her intensity, her nature, is not necessarily crazy woman gonna dance on your car and you need to call the cops, get arrested, kind of, or something weird like that. It's very controlled and controlling, and I'm not saying she's after something in the bigger picture, but she's got to be, and I just don't know if it's just him or what. And I've never known that, because I never saw the original series like you did, but I like how she plays with everybody a little bit, and it's a great way to end too. Great episode. Really looking forward to the next one there too. It's just, this stuff is just so damn good. It's so entertaining, and it's a lighthearted episode. So, any other final thoughts from you?
Yeah, no, I agree. It was brilliant. How they executed this was going to make or break this season in my eyes, and thus far they have done a brilliant job. Again, it's going to be very interesting to see, because having the past and present run at the same time is not what happened before for me. That's just the present was frozen until Victoria was able to find her way back. And so here I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no idea where we're going, but I understand where I am, and it feels like home.
Good.
So it's great.
I'm glad, because like I said, 20 years later, Dan Kerr's rebooting it, trying to modernize it. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do in orbit. Usually, when you involve the original people, like say Cobra Kai, it can happen. Doesn't guarantee that it will, but yeah, very enjoyable. Episode 8 next week. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Dark Shadows revival from 1991. That was season 1, episode 7. Check us out next week when we go to do episode 8. We'll be sure to dive deep into that and all its delicious goodness, because that's what the show is so far. I've got zero complaints for it too. So until then, I'd like to thank Professor Pixel for showing up. Have a good night, everybody, and remember, stay extreme.
And the Dark Shadows is a Dan Curtis production.